All right, guys, get excited because now we got the gear out here and I'm going to go through all this with you, kind of show you what I like about it, how I like to use this stuff, and some details, basic overview of it. We're going to get started with the CDJs, so I can just kind of give you a brief run through on what's on top in case you're not so familiar with it, or maybe there's things you didn't totally understand about them because you haven't had the chance to use them quite a bit. This was a big issue for me, so eventually I was able to get my hands on some and go through all of it. So I'm here to share that with you. So let's go into the CDJs here and take a look at what's exactly on top. So while we're looking at the CDJ here, let's start on this corner. We have our master tempo fader. This is where you change the BPM of your song to match the other ones. And the master tempo button. You always want this button on red, especially since we did all that prep doing the mixed and key stuff here. And the reason why is when you're playing at a BPM and you change the BPM of your song, the master tempo button being on will not change the key, so if you actually slow down your song and play it at a slower BPM and the master tempo button is not lit up red, it'll actually pitch down your song. To give you a quick example of that, let me go to a part of the song here. So we're playing this now with the master tempo on. I can speed it up or slow it down, and it doesn't change the key. If I turn it off, now you hear it pitch down. If I speed up the BPM, it's gonna speed up the whole song, kind of like a classic record player would do. However, we don't really want that function because it's gonna change the key of your song and throw off the whole mix in general. So always make sure, when you walk up to a CDJ, you always wanna make sure like, okay, what's on and what's not? What do I need for my setup? For me, it's always first thing, make sure the master tempo is lit up. Right above that, we have the sync and master buttons. I'm gonna explain that in further detail in a little bit, but this will basically sync your BPM with the other CDJs, which are connected through Ethernet cables. If you have multiple CDJs, they connect them through an Ethernet hub, and that's how they're all able to link up together. Right now, we don't even have a USB in this CDJ. We're running it off of that one, but because we're linked, I can hit this link button up here and read all the information off of that CDJ and load up songs on here and keep them totally separated still, which is very cool. Moving on, we have some vinyl adjust speed. So this kind of is your speed of like how fast it picks up or it slows down when you hit the pause or play button. Really slow, you hear it creep up. Really fast, it stops and starts right away. So the slow down is also the same way when it's all the way slow. So that can be a cool transitional effect if you need. I don't use so much of the cue loop call buttons or the delete memory stuff here. I use more of the live looping functions, and this is where the loops that we set up in our hot cues are gonna be turned off. We're definitely gonna get into that in a little bit here. You have this jog adjust knob right here. This is for the plate speed, just to see how fast you want it to spin. All the way loose, it'll spin, spin, spin. All the way tight, it's a little more kind of stuck feeling. It's all about control and what you're comfortable with. Totally your preference, no big deal what you like. Right in the middle is probably the best way to go if you don't have a preference. On this side here, we have our hot cues that we set up already. You see some are orange, blue, and green. We're not actually using the blue one here, but we're gonna get into these hot cues in our upcoming lessons. Down here, your basic track search where you can fast forward or flip through like a CD player. Cue button, you can basically place a cue anywhere you want in the song and re-trigger that to start it. And then that's it. You have this little directional flip where you can choose to play something in reverse as you're mixing out or whatever the case may be. When you put it in slip mode, it'll actually pick up where you were left off before. So this little slip button is very cool for that feature, where if you're playing and you have slip mode activated, you can reverse, and when you let go, it's where we already were in the song, so you kind of don't lose your place and just reverse back and then have to listen through that again. But that is pretty much that. Otherwise, just basic search functions up here. You have your screen, you're looking at where you're at in your song, and then there's this little scroll bar on the top that syncs up with this CDJ that shows them playing together, and you can line up the red cue points on here like we had in Rekordbox with the two CDJs together. So we're gonna dive into some deeper functions and things about here like the sync button and the hot cues coming up in our next lessons. So I'll catch you guys in a bit.